Yeah, so today we're going to talk about the new era of ocean bookings. It's kind of a dual kind of update. It is EDI to API, and obviously a very significant AI element playing a role here as well. Um, so we can start with maybe some introductions on our side. Um, My name is Graham Parker. I'm co-founder and CEO here at Chip Angel. Previously, co-founder and CEO at Containers with a K. And there we built front-end execution platforms for some of the world's biggest shipping brands, like Maersk, and eZim, Siva, Daxer, Pantos, and a lot more. In a lot of ways, kind of prepared me for this journey, thinking about building booking platforms at scale. And got my colleague Andrew here with me as well. Hand over to him for an intro.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. It's wonderful to be here. My name is Andrew Bourget, head of customer operations for Ship Angel. I have a almost 15-year career in international transportation. It started in college. I went to what's called Massachusetts Maritime Academy. And so unlike the beard, I had a clean shaven, uniformed tenure in college. After which I went to work for an ocean carrier, Maersk Line. I spent a little time working on the sort of inside sales commercial side of the business. I also spent some time at Kuehne in sales and commercial, additionally at DSV, and I spent almost 5 years at CMA CGM on a commercial side. After all that, I transitioned working for a BCO. And so executing a supply chain, moving cargo, planning projects, sort of the whole kit and caboodle when it comes to supply chain and moving international cargo. And so for our customers, I bring a lot of perspective on both sides of the table, really all three sides of the table, the carrier asset side, the non-asset side, as well as the customer side. And so I'm looking forward to talking with all of you and hopefully showing you a little more about the Ship Angel platform here as we go.
Thanks, Andrew. That's awesome. So we're gonna go through a few slides with you today, and then bring you into the product and show you some of it in action. Um, the first element of the slide is what our crack marketing team here at Ship Angel aptly describes as the dark history of ocean bookings, which does sound a little bit dark and sinister, but it's really kind of honing in again on this kind of dual moment we're about to embark on in 2026, which hopefully there's a bunch of BCOs listening to this. Is going to really dramatically give you guys an improvement in quality of life. And it's two key areas that we're going to hone in on today, starting with the EDI to API piece and then talking about AI. But starting with the EDI piece, we are now just weeks away from 2026. And if we look back to the start of this century, 2001, 2002, when Intra was founded by the shipping lines jointly by a bunch of them, it was a conscious effort to make sure that the ocean freight industry stayed ahead in the technological revolution, which at the time was the dot-com era. And those kind of EDI standards that were built at that time are still pretty much the kind of de facto way to make an ocean booking today. And that was, these are standards that were set a quarter of a century ago. And EDI technology was pioneered in the mid 50s and 60s in the last century. So this is very old technology. And the EDI to API moment is super interesting. Um, we're going to publish a very interesting podcast with Zvi Schreiber, the CEO and founder of Freightos. I had a great conversation with him this week, and we talked about the airlines and their move from EDI to API bookings, and how now the airline industry is now very much API first, and COVID was a very clear accelerant in that process. In some ways, I guess it helps that airlines have a very mature software stack when it comes to passengers, and maybe to an extent they could bring some of that to bear, moving from EDI to API. But we have to remember that air freight's only about 3% of the world's cargo. and ocean freight is 92. So this is a much, much bigger moment. And we're talking about, 12 or 13 carriers responsible for more than 90% of ocean freight trade. So this move from EDI to API is a huge deal. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we're moving from systems that are EDI based to API. But also how a lot more bookings that are not placed via EDI are done still manually, still a lot of email. And that's kind of where we think about the history. Um, I think in a lot of ways, we all would have expected the move from EDI to API a bit faster, but 2026 is absolutely the year. I think the Digital Container Shipping Association has done an unbelievable job in pushing probably half of the top 10 carriers to adopting their brand new API booking standard. And it is quite transformative if you look at how long email and EDI place bookings takes many, many hours, often double-digit hours, versus API, where we're often talking about single-digit minutes. The downstream and upstream benefits of this are very, very significant. We talk about some of them here about increasing visibility, just the limitations of EDI, how rigid and long it takes compared to APIs, where calls can be done in literally nanoseconds or seconds. So it's a really, really exciting moment in ocean freight on the API to EDI moment. And I think you'd agree, Andrew. Again, you've got a fantastic history of working with the carriers and forwarders, but I think it's fair to say that this is an important milestone. Would you agree?
100%. I think the big thing that's really important to remember is we want to get away from using email to make bookings and execute a move within your supply chain. I mean, email, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but this technology, email is probably as old, if not barely newer than the fax machine. I mean, some folks, international logistics remember when fax machines dominated the transportation of documents in international transportation. Email still dominates the transportation of executing bookings. Whether that's your dray provider, your 3PL, or your direct carrier, you have emails flying around everywhere. And so it's useful to be able to transition into a system, quite literally a system, that can reply in minutes and can show the history, can show what's pending, show what's not pending. In today's EDI world, you're kind of at the mercy of when they respond is when you get the information versus being able to say, hey, this is updated up until the last second. Every second or every multiple seconds, the system is updating to pull the most updated data. And in the way the world works today is 5 minutes from now, the world could drastically be changed for supply chain. One tweet, one, global event, things could change, and being able to react and move faster is always going to be better.
Absolutely. I think it's a very interesting point. So EDI to API on its own is a monumental once in a generation event. And again, most supply chains are run through the ocean. So what makes this a even more seminal moment is that API is happening at the exact same moment that we have AI. And I think it's really interesting to look at, how AI will live in the bookings and will start to give the users these guided inputs as they move through the process. But for us at ShipAngel, we think of our rate system as our forward deployed layer of getting the first product in front of customers and show how fast it is, how important it is. And it's kind of a good um, area where we can demonstrate AI first, where we built the world's first in-house AI technology to read rate sheets at scale. It turns out that AI, while it's unbelievable at ingesting a lot of words, it's not so good at taking in disparate numbers. It doesn't even understand where one starts and one ends, and not to mention what what surcharges and what conditions go with each rate. So for us, this has been our kind of our forward deployed layer. I mean, Andrew, you're working in this kind of a lot more than me now. I think it's fair to say that this is kind of a good first step for shippers to make sure that we're kind of getting off on the right foot. If we don't have the rates right, how can we get the booking right?
Yeah, totally. Without the rate, and this is not my phrase, this is Graham, I believe you probably coined this phrase. Without the rate, nothing happens. And so if you don't have a rate for a shipping lane, you can't move it. Generally, you can't make a booking. Your execution of moving cargo starts to slow down because you don't have a rate. And so you have to start with that rate. Well, where does that rate come from? Well, it comes from multiple providers in multiple formats that you have to consolidate, understand, get your calculator out and start adding up all these numbers. The ability to bring all of that into a platform to do zero ingestion on your side as a BCO is extremely valuable. It consolidates your information, it consolidates your time. And we on the Ship Angel side are processing thousands of rate uploads every single month. And the only way for us to be able to do that volume of processing is to use AI. We've been using it since we started, and the leaps and bounds that has come in just the last 6 months, let alone the last year, is absolutely incredible. And we see it on, the team that I work with directly is our solution engineer team. The ability for us to bring in new customers and new formats and new Excels and PDFs and different ways of getting the rates, being able to build out the AI to process all of that and do it correctly, efficiently,
Yeah,
and consistently. Those are all very different things. Correctly is very difficult. To do it consistently is another difficult challenge, let alone very quickly. And so we couldn't do that without the AI. The AI is fundamental to our process, but it's also fundamental to our customers' process in that they can now go back and focus on, do I have the right rates? Do I have competitive rates? And without that, you'd be, stuck in spreadsheets all day just trying to understand your business, let alone trying to make your business better.
absolutely. And from here, on the rate system, we move to um, forward, if it's okay to change to the next
Yeah.
slide here, is right again, rates is effectively the kind of front door in. All of your data is in. A lot of the booking data is already living in the rate piece, so it kind of feeds into making the booking process faster and easier and ensuring that we're going to be able to help you make the right decision for every single shipment. And this again is where kind of AI and API and UI UX all marry together to create a brand new type of experience for the shippers. And this is where we're really excited. You know, from again this type of where we started on AI was thinking a lot about AI as a chatbot co-pilot, and now for us here at Ship Angel, it's evolved into Maddie, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. But again, what you can kind of see here is a new uh, era of bookings, taking the best of APIs from speed, marrying it into UI UX, and then bringing a fundamentally different and new type of AI into the experience, which is really obvious and actionable for the user. It's not hyperbole, and it's not just there for the sake of it. It's there to help you every single time. And then the next stage of the past this is Maddie, like we said. And the goal of Maddie, which stands for Make Analyze Data Decisions for You, is to help the user as they move through these very complex bookings to give you insights and to be able to help you, particularly on the booking side, as we're really here to talk about bookings today. The idea of as you go through a booking and you're saying, okay, I've got to book this route. Maddie is able to think about, how much space have you got left on each of your contracts? Uh, which carriers transshipping over an area where there's a geopolitical event? How do you know what happened this time last year? Maddie is there living on the right-hand side of your screen. And the idea is it's empowering you, giving you these thoughtful insights at just the right moment for you to decide whether or not you take action. So we're very, very excited about Maddie. And as you can see here, Maddie lives right throughout the system. Also taking advantage of that kind of rate parsing technology, being able to read POs, being able to put them together, being able to make suggestions on how to bundle them together effectively, and being able to execute it in a click. Similar technology in the invoice audit. Again, reading very difficult sheets with a lot of different numbers and making sense of them. So Maddie is out of the box there to help you, but Maddie is able to be configured to work within your requirements. So understanding your workflows, understanding what's important in your business, how do you operate your international supply chain, which parties are involved, do you have a booking office in Asia? Do you have a trusted customs clearance agent in the US? Do you have a trucking company in the US that needs access for the exports? All of these different parties coming in, powered by Maddie, helping giving to give these proactive suggestions, alerting you to possible delays. And when there is a delay, Maddie knows enough about international supply chain and knows enough about your vendor portfolio to put together the top two, three, or four suggestions to solve that problem immediately. It could be there's an opportunity to move some air freight, there's an opportunity to move on a faster carrier, there's a possibility of asking a carrier for a change of destination. All of this insight just coming into your browser tab that's actionable in a click. And this is what's being made possible now by AI. Um,
Graham, where do you see AI going, not in 1 year, 2 years, but long term, 2, 3, 4 years? What is AI going to be capable of when it comes to supply chain software?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot to do on kind of helping to kind of smooth out a lot of what happens in international supply chain today. And there's a lot of basics that we need to get right as an industry. But if you look at AI, what's really interesting about AI is that it's growing, the effectiveness is growing double digits month on month, non-stop for 3 years. That's never happened before in a technology. We have it grow for a quarter and then 2 quarters later, every month it's improving. And at that rate of pace, in 1 to 2 years, I think things will look dramatically different. I think Maddie and agents like that have an ability to move right across the supply chain and start to help more of the teams give actionable insights. And ultimately, if you can move the cargo faster with less problems, ultimately sell more faster and even get an understanding of your business, understanding not just what's happening on routes and giving you route advice and giving you advice on when something goes wrong or giving you useful insights on MQC. Understanding you are a sneaker company and there's just been a tariff announcement 4 minutes ago. Do you really want to move this shipment from Vietnam? Or you're a commodity broker, and you've programmed me to look at the price of coffee and it's just moved downward in Brazil. Does this give us an opportunity to move more cargo in the next month? I think there is incredible opportunity for AI to proliferate right throughout the supply chain and help all of the teams right throughout the life cycle of a shipment, right up to the stage of actually being able to move more and sell more at a lower cost. And then to be able to start to understand the context of your business. I'm in the chemical trade, I'm in the sneaker trade. How can Maddie help me? How can AI help me to understand the complexities of supply chain and give me actionable suggestions? I think that's eventually where it's going.
I would sum that up, but ask you this a question is, do you see it enabling logisticians or replacing logisticians?
I think enabling logisticians. I think there are a tremendous cohort of people in this industry that have what I would call tribal knowledge. That even if you read all the textbooks like AI does, there are things that we do every day as logistics experts that are not written in textbooks that people know. Even here at Ship Angel, between you and MB and myself, we probably have 100 years of experience in the industry, or not far off it. And there's so much that we've seen over the decades I think feeding those experts with these types of actionable real-time insights will accelerate and enable rather than replace.
Absolutely. I use the phrase a lot. It makes a sub-average logistician better, but it makes a above-average logistician way better. It gives them a lot of tools and guardrails to make sure that they're making, in the sense of Maddie, making really good data-driven decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same in other areas of AI, like we see it with our engineering teams. It's empowered. We're lucky to work with, the best of the best on the engineering side. It's empowered all of them to work and get, 30, 40% more done than they used to. It's not 100%, but it's 30 or 40. But it also means that people just can't start, coding either. You need a level of expertise. So I think it's similar here.
Absolutely.
Um,
What do you
okay,
say?
and
Shall we show off
absolutely.
product?
Enough slides. Let's get into taking a look. Let's see what.
So before we get too deep into bookings, I want to paint the picture here for everyone on the call. And I said it a minute ago, and I'll reiterate, nothing happens in international shipping without an international shipping rate. So everything starts with the ocean rate. And so Ship Angel, the way our system is designed and works, we have to start with rate management. It's the cornerstone of the pyramid that we are building, in that you have to have the rate. In order to get the rate, you need to have your rate quotes, your contracts, your email pricing. All of that information needs to be presented inside the platform. In order to do that, we have set up our artificial intelligence machine learning model that we have built internally. We're not pulling in a large LLM to do the thinking for us. We have built our own system internally to process all of these rate sheets. Combined with our solutions engineer team, we then take all of that data and make sure it gets into the platform correctly. And so, from a business perspective, it's provide the quotes and the contracts and the rate updates and the spot quotes and the, hey, I need a rate on this lane email. All of that flows into ShipAngel. We process it and we present it for you inside the platform. Without that process, what it looks like is a very templatized, frustrating process of manipulating data yourself to make it fit into the system. We allow you and your vendors to provide us with what you have, and we'll do the processing and the translating because of the AI enables us to do that efficiently and correctly. Without this process, you now, or because of this process rather, you can now build systems on top of your data. The first system is that rate processing system. Within that system, what you get is the ability to now come into a platform for all of your modalities: ocean, FCL, and LCL, air freight, trucking, full container, full trucking, full truckload, as well as LTL. All of these modalities are inside the ShipAngel platform. The modalities that we don't do are parcel and space travel, both of which are important and probably the next frontier. But in terms of international shipping, everyone's doing ocean, air, and trucking, and some of the sub versions of those. All of those live in the system here. What it's going to allow us to do now is say, hey, I want to look up a potential shipment that I need to move on. And so we're going to look at a Shanghai to Antwerp lane. And I can now search this lane inside of my system. If I'm looking at an air shipment, I can review the surcharges related to air. If I'm looking at an FCL, LCL, or even a truckload, I can now compare surcharges. I can compare transit time. We bring in third-party data to help you validate your decisions. Before we had Maddie, we simply said, how does a human going to compare and contrast what options they should use? And so with the third party data that we bring in different places, transit, CO2, and market benchmark allow you to make the right decision. The idea here is once I've decided who I'm going to ship on this lane, and so this is a Shanghai to Antwerp. My lowest price here is with Hapag-Lloyd. As I scroll down, we can see some rates for CMA, we can see some rates for MSC, but based on the information provided here, I'm not going to use my lowest price carrier because maybe transit time is important for me right now. I have a hot commodity that I need to get here ASAP. Every day matters. Based on the information that ShipAngel is providing, the fastest transit is going to be this MSC option. So what I can do here is now I can say, all right, now I need to make this booking. And in order to make this booking, it's really simple. It's click the book button in the bottom of the right-hand corner. We have a screen that'll open up here, and this is your booking request form. And there's really two things you need to fill out. We already know your carrier, we know your contract, we know your information. We don't need to ask you to confirm information that's already known. All you need to do is come in and say, when is the cargo ready? I can say, you know what, it's going to be ready on the 15th. Get me on the next vessel after the 15th. And from there, we can decide how many boxes am I going to ship. If it's 140 foot, if it's 140 high cube, or it's a combination of the both, I can put this information in, and now I'm able to make the booking. Additionally, what you're able to do here is also ask Maddie questions. Hey, I need help. I don't know what to do. And one of the questions that you can ask Maddie is, hey, what are the congestion levels in Antwerp? Assuming you can spell better than myself, what it's going to be able to do is Maddie is going to go look and say, is there congestion in Antwerp? Is there something that I need to worry about? Is there a problem potentially that I haven't seen myself that Maddie's going to hopefully be able to go out and answer for us, to be able to confirm whether this is the right decision. Maybe I can't ship to Antwerp. Maybe I have to reroute to Rotterdam because of some congestion issues. Maddie is there to help you make better decisions and ensure that you're moving the right cargo to the right places at the right times. Um, Maddie is just kind of answering this question here. We'll give it a couple minutes, a couple seconds more for her to hopefully come back with a confirmation of an answer. Once the key here and the important piece is once we're able to send this request off, what it's going to do is going to send an API booking request over to the carrier, in this case, MSC. That booking then gets processed by MSC, and then once confirmed, the data gets pushed back to ShipAngel. And so once I click send here, what it's going to do is initiate that booking process. From there, what it's going to do is it's going to live now inside your system. And so my MSC booking lives inside my ShipAngel application. All of the information is listed here. I know what my price is. I know the transit time. I know the last update in this case was seconds ago. I also know the sort of chain of events that has to happen from the start of a shipment to the end of a shipment. I know where I am in that process. Right now, the booking is pending, and probably in the next couple minutes, it'll transition from pending to confirmed. Additionally, there's information around once we get the booking confirmed, ready date, cutoff date, your all of the data around that shipment is now presented to you in one place. Additionally, as shipments start to move and container numbers are assigned, we can also come into the activity log and understand, what what's the last update on the transit? What's the status update? Are there any alerts? Is there information here, comments, documents? All of this lives right here inside the platform. What's important is now this all lives in one singular place. In the same place that you're managing and uploading all of your rates is the same place all of your carrier shipments now live. What this replaces is the need to have all of these other browser tabs open on your screen. I have to have MSC, Maersk, CMA, OOCL, DSV, Costco, One High, Evergreen, Hapag. I have to go to every single carrier's website. I have to have a login for every carrier's website. I have to initiate a booking in their process. I have to make sure I put in the right information around, am I shipping is it New York, or is it Norfolk, or is it Newark? I got to remember the exact location. All of that is inside your rate management. All of that is easily there for you to organize and manage without having to go to all of the different carriers' websites to initiate the process. Once that process has been initiated, now it lives in one place, all of your carriers. And so I'm going to go into a different shipment that was booked previously. And in here, what you're going to see is now here, the status bars, we now see that the booking was confirmed. And we see we've moved on to now shipping instructions are required. Based on this information, we know that there's a cargo ready date, there's a document cutoff, so we know information related to our booking. We also have the ability to sort of see how is the statuses here progressing? And so we can see there was a status change from pending to shipping instruction required, meaning the booking was confirmed. We know what vessel we're loading and sailing on. It's going to be MSC Dubai. We know what's going to happen. We know the time frames involved. Additionally, here we can also start that process of uploading the shipping instructions. And so from here, I could start this process. I could come in. If I'm a shipper overseas or I'm an exporter here in the US, I probably have a packing list, commercial invoice. I can put those all in front of me or up on my screen, and I could start to fill this information out. But what's super useful is we can also bring that information right here inside of the platform. And so when I could just come here, we can upload our certificate of origin. And then now this document lives inside the platform. I can also come in here and say, hey, let me upload my packing list for this shipment. This can also live inside the document here. And what's useful here is should this be something that you want your team to have access to, we can have Maddie start to extract that information and present it here in the platform for you. And so right now we can take this information and it can get plugged in so that a shipping instruction no longer is a click and pick, or maybe you're a better typer than most. You simply upload the document, the information gets transferred over, and we have the ability to kind of take a peek at that.
I think
Um,
I think that's a great point, Andrew, and in our early users have commented on this as well. Like it's a pretty magical experience to just ask Maddie to fill all the stuff in, and Maddie can just do it. And we're already again working on the future elements of it, which is Maddie is able to look at data sources for this information. Could look through not just the parsed documents, but even into emails. So this is something that's already quite magical and completely different to what's out there. I see Marco has a question about how many ocean carriers are already on board, and how does the process for niche carriers work? Great question, Marco. We talk about APIs and we've also got to be realistic. Not all of the top 10 are live with APIs first. So Ship Angel's strategy here has been kind of dual course, be the first to connect with the ones that are live with APIs. I think that's going to be five at the end of this month, five of the top 10. And then for the remainder, we have some great partners in the middle layer that connect us into all of the top 14, and a lot more of the smaller ones. So far, the smaller ones that we've come across that are not part of the top 14 have already been connected into one of our middleware partners. But if it ended up being a niche carrier that we weren't connected to and they didn't have an API, then that would be something we would undertake to add to our integration directly with that carrier, regardless of whether they have API or EDI. Our goal is to make it totally seamless. One of the cornerstones here that, I don't want to get too salesy, but the biggest thing I hear from BCOs all the time is I've got to log into six different platforms to make bookings. I just want one. So our goal here, Marco, is to give you and give out all BCOs that one browser tab to do all of your bookings, freight forwarder, carrier, whatever the case may be. Back to you, Andrew.
Absolutely. What's interesting is like Graham mentioned it before, we can cover 90% of the industry in terms of ocean shipping. There's the consolidation of the last 10 years in ocean carriers is pretty significant. And so if you're working with a smaller niche carrier, they want to be a bigger player. And so they're going to want to have conversations with players like Ship Angel and yourself. So how do we get on to help you, Marco, at the end of the day to make your life easier? We can also make potentially bring them into the platform. Just kind of rolling along here inside the platform. What's also useful here is once we get through the different stages, and so the shipping instruction required is sort of the first step in any shipment. Nothing really happens until the cargo is, actually loaded into a container and the instructions are provided to the carrier. What I can point out here is this Shanghai to Antwerp booking that we made earlier is already moved along into the status. And so you can see if you were watching my screen, as I came back here to the screen, it went from status uh, pending to status shipping instruction required. And so that was just a few minutes. And we're able to process the booking and be able to show that booking moving along in that status. Additionally, when we've gotten past different statuses, you're able to see a lot more information and start to get into the sort of nuts and bolts of a shipment. What is, the bill of lading information ultimately becomes very valuable. What is the sort of documentation that I'm going to need to produce or make sure is correct before a shipment moves? All of that is visible inside the ShipAngel platform so that you don't have to go chase documents and uploads and processes in multiple places or hope that the EDI comes over in that once a day push or pull. This is constantly updated every second, every minute of the day. This is updating to make sure you have the most updated information. And what's useful here is you can see kind of when the last update was made. And so what this tells you here is nothing has changed since the 5th of November. When something changes, you'll know, hey, this updated, this changed. And you can see that here with this last update, as well as within the activity log, there'll be certain information that is presented here as activity is made. What's useful additionally about the booking process that we have built is you can now look at your booking process as a workflow. It's no longer just a mess of data flowing into one place or out. We can now start to filter by statuses. Hey, what's a status that is something that I need to do? Well, if I need to do a shipping instruction, these are the shipments that I maybe need to action on. I need to do something on these shipments. Additionally, you might want to filter, well, what's pending? And so we have the ability for you to filter here, but you can also click on these sort of pre-built tabs of what are the shipments that are pending. Hey, I made a booking on October 16th. It's yet to be confirmed by CMA. Let me go call CMA. What's going on with this? Why isn't it confirmed? Oh, we're overbooked on that lane, or there's a problem they can't cover. You can uncover where those problems lie and start to manage by exception. I don't always need to know what goes right. I need to necessarily goes wrong in the process. When I come back in here, what's also super useful is I can see the pricings of things. It may seem a little bit trivial for some, but you now have the ability to see your rate data amongst your booking data. And this is important because you might be making bookings with your different providers and you need to very quickly, your finance team calls you and says, "Hey, what's going to be our spend for the next couple of weeks or the next month based on what you have booked? What's on the water in terms of cost and transportation spend?" You're going to be able to come in and really get a good idea of what my costs are along with your bookings. What's your documentation dates? When does this shipment move? And additionally, what we've done within the ShipAngel booking process, we also bring in a visibility partner. And so visibility is a big catchword in supply chain logistics. What's important is I know where my cargo is, not just where CMA tells me my cargo is. And so we have a visibility partner is once you're able to enter in a container number on a shipment, they're going to provide not only what the carrier tells you this shipment is, hey, it departed Shanghai, it's on its way to, Hong Kong, it transships there, and then it's going to be sent into LA. However it's moving, you'll see it additionally from a third party to be able to verify, hey, this is where it is and when it'll get there. Looks like we have another question here from Timothy. The inputting of the documentation is done in most cases by the shipper. And so if you're a US exporter shipping from the United States, you might make a booking. You might dispatch a dray provider to go pick up the cargo. They may pick up the cargo. You may produce a packing list, and then you may take that packing list and use it to produce the shipping instructions. I bet you have a commercial invoice. You probably have a certificate of origin. You have all these documents that go with a shipment. You can upload all of those to the platform and you can drive that process as the shipper. If it's an overseas shipment coming into the US where you're buying something and shipping it into the US, you might have a vendor overseas, a factory, you might have a sales office who is probably doing that process today, but having to live in 7 different, environments or having to coordinate everything via email. We can bring them into ShipAngel. We can bring that process into the ShipAngel platform and consolidate it and make it a lot easier for them.
And I think, like, we just to add to what Andrew said, I think the goal is, to your point, Timothy, I think is the you, the shipper, are adding the data. But as you can see in the demo here, we already have a capability with Maddie where she can take your, say, commercial invoice and populate the shipping instruction. If you look at the actual booking, this is the fastest booking process that's ever been done for ocean freight. Because we start with your rates, we need to only ask you two questions. When's the cargo ready? What do you want to ship? We know everything else. So to place a booking with Ship Angel, 2 clicks. To do a shipping instruction could be as few as 1 click because you could say to Maddie, here's my commercial invoice, go and fill this data in for me. So the goal is really to utilize the AI too and get you to a world where the data is done by the AI in conjunction with your cargo manager. Um, so yeah, so also I see here, Tim, the your freight forwarder is making the bookings. Again, in this world, yeah, this platform you can have different user roles. So you could say, it's me, the shipper's account, but and I'm the admin. My cargo manager has a different view. My freight forwarder has a different view again. They can only see their bookings and they can only do X and Y. I can do A to Z, and my cargo manager can do A to M. So it's quite configurable out of the box, and we have a view of that even within our rate system as well, where again, not everybody needs to see every global rate.
What's important too is we also work with freight forwarders here inside the platform. And so initially you may need to make a booking with a DSV, a DHL, a Kuehne+Nagel, any other freight forwarder out there. You can also do that here inside the platform. You can initiate that process. Maybe your freight forwarder takes over the documentation piece, they take over the coordination piece once you've started that process, but it allows you to come into the platform, pick a rate on the right lane, making sure you're making a data-driven decision on picking the right carrier, the right vendor, the right origin and destination to avoid congestion. All of that can be validated in the platform. You can start that process in the platform, and then you can potentially hand that off to your forwarder to say, here, it's now your job to do your job. But I also have the ability to sort of like check what's going on. I don't have to go to their website, or their website to check in what's going on. I go into my one system that I'm utilizing to check my rates, to check my invoices because I'm using invoice audit. I also want to check my operational data. And so the bookings doesn't have to be a complete, I make the booking, I do the documentation, I make sure it moves on
Yes.
time. I can start that process and then everything flows in. So I at least know what's going on, where things
Yeah.
are, what stages they're at.
Great question from Grant here as well. Really great one, Grant. We wrestled with this one for a long time. Who's the visibility partner as a bring your own model? We could not decide what was the right thing to do, so we did both. We picked Vision API as our partner. So if you do not have a visibility partner through the Ship Angel platform, you will get the benefit of Vision API's best in class visibility tools. Um, and also, if you come to us and say, hey, I have a 24-month contract with visibility provider X and I have 18 months left, great. We will connect in with that visibility provider and that data will power all of the updates in your system. So I think that was probably a good place to get to, either or. I think it would have been difficult to try and push one of those. So we went with both.
Awesome.
Right on time.
Graham, I mean, you've been around supply chain technology longer than myself and longer than probably everyone that I've sort of known or met in supply chain technology. The execution part of this platform is important, but you can't get to the cool stuff without the rate management or the
Yeah.
system that we've been able to build on top of our rates. Correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, not to diss on the international TMSs, but I think one of the fundamental things is that in 2025 rates are so complex. Like think back to an ocean freight contract in 2014 as an example. It was much longer, there was a lot less surcharges, and you needed less vendors because you weren't going from crisis to crisis. Today, with the amount of vendors, surcharges, changes in your contract, addition of spot, extra vendors. It's a nightmare to control. And one of the many reasons we started with rates was, like you said, Andrew, if you don't have that right, if you don't know what your rate is, how do you know which one you should be booking with? Which means if you don't get that right, you're probably already gone down the wrong road. So you're absolutely right. Getting the fundamentals right is important.
Awesome. Graham, what should anyone do on this call who's listening or watching do if they're interested in Ship Angel or the Ship Angel booking platform?
Yeah, I mean, please feel free to reach out to myself, Andrew, or Liam on LinkedIn and DM us. You can also go to our website and book a demo. We're all in on shippers. We're obsessed with improving your lives. Would love to help in any way we can, even if it's just a conversation. And really appreciate everybody taking the time to spend with us today. I hope you found it somewhat beneficial.
Awesome. Graham, it's been a pleasure to sit here and show the platform with you.
You too, sir.
You get the last word. Tell us what should we do next?
No, I think looking forward to having more of these. We're going to do a lot more show and tells. We're going to keep on moving at warp speed, listening to you guys and delivering quality products. And it's an exciting time with where AI is. So look forward to another one of these in the not too distant future.
Awesome. Thank you, Graham. Thank
Thanks,
you, everyone.
everybody.